Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the official Nerd Talk channel. My name is Tyler, aka Mind of a Nerd, joined by my co-host AJ Reacts to, and we are back for another installment of Originals versus Remakes. And since it is Valentine's Day, the day of love, to be with your loved ones and show them how much you care, even though you should do that every day, we figured it would be fun to give you guys a Originals versus Remakes episode based on My Bloody Valentine. Back in the 80s when mostly every holiday had a horror themed movie to it. You had Halloween with Halloween, Black Christmas was Christmas, St. Patty's Day was Leprechaun, kind of. You even had, now we have Thanksgiving, which is very good, by the way. I feel like there's a lot of Christmas ones, but there's a lot of Halloween ones, but yeah. And then there's even an April Fool's Day one. Which I've heard is actually not too bad. But yeah, so now we got My Bloody Valentine, which was, right smack bang in the 80s. So let's get into it, starting with My Bloody Valentine 1981. So My Bloody Valentine was directed by George Mihalka. I probably butchered that. I am so sorry. He went on to direct nothing after this, so that's good for him. And it stars Paul Kelman, Laurie Hallier, I'm sorry, Neil Affleck, Keith Knight, amongst other people, and tells the story of a town that is cursed by a legend of this minor accident, not minor accident,
mining
accident.
The mining.
And basically there was this killer named person named Harry Warden who survived this attack, and he went on to go kill everyone, and he basically told the town never celebrate Valentine's Day ever again because the accident happened on Valentine's Day, or the 13th, something around there. So now we flash forward, and the town is throwing a Valentine's Day dance, and killings start happening. Which this movie kind of surprisingly reminded me of Footloose in a way.
It did. I was thinking that exact same thing. When I watched it.
And it's a Paramount movie too. So, and it came out in the 80s.
Yes, exactly.
Listen, this plot is absolutely ridiculous.
It is.
Before I get into that, I've seen this movie once before, like once. I think I watched it. Let's airball it. Say 2018 during 31 Days of Halloween when I first started it, I think, and I was like, I've never seen this one. I think people think it's a classic. And let's check it out. And I enjoyed it. I remember being like, oh, that was pretty cool. I kind of like the concept. I don't remember it being this stupid, but I was like, that's cool. So this was a rewatch. I had remembered the minor look. Look,
especially that mask, man.
Yeah. And I remembered the ending being kind of cool, I guess, and I remembered some atmospheric sequences. I also have to preface this: me and AJ both watched the unrated version. I've never seen the unrated version because I think I had watched it on Hulu when I first watched it, so that was the theatrical cut. So I didn't remember the kills being as good as they were. So that was actually a plus watching the unrated cut. Yes. So when this movie ended, I was like, well, that came out in 1981. But I enjoyed this movie for what it is. Is it campy and goofy? Sure, but this. I believe this came out right after Friday the 13th, and this is from the same studio. And I'm bringing up Friday the 13th because both this and the remake both basically copy Friday the 13th movies in one way or another.
It's like a copy and paste kind of thing.
The characters are just as uninteresting as in Friday the 13th. Although I will say I like the final people more in this movie than Friday the 13th. Again, the plot is really goofy. But once you get past the goofy plot, I feel like the movie embraces the goofiness. Like, the kills are very creative and unique. You don't watch the movie and you're like, oh, this is the same kill I just saw. Like, no.
Yeah.
There are some really cool kills and also practical effects. We
Right.
gotta applaud him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, well, in the
It's the,
unrated cut, I
it's
don't
the,
know
it's
if
the 80s, man.
I don't know if that happens in the theatrical, but in the unrated cut, the kills were freaking great. Like there were some good ones. Like there was a laundry one where somebody's like stuck in a
Yo,
laundry
that's
dryer,
I
and the
was
practical effects were great.
I
Um,
was that
all
was
of them,
crazy. That was
all the
crazy.
kills were really really good. AJ, what did
Mhm.
you think of the original My Bloody Valentine?
I had some similar feelings about the original, the 1981 version. Like you said, the minor costume is like kind of iconic in a way. I'm kind of surprised that this movie didn't like take off like Friday 13th and like have tons of spin-offs and things like that, because it's very similar in a lot of different ways. It has that 80s campiness. It's silly, it's goofy, but it also has like some great kills, which we did see the director's cut of this movie. So seeing the theatrical cut might be a little bit different, but yo, that dryer scene when the guy opens the dryer and the body is like rotating and like all the flesh is off of it and the eyes are like gouged out. It's crazy, man. But overall, this film, it's it's not my favorite. It has, that pacing, that 80s pacing for me, 80s slasher pacing. It was very similar to the first Friday the 13th for me. The characters are just not quite interesting enough for me. But really, everything that was, the only thing that was, keeping me going was the kills for this in this movie.
Well,
But
I, I would say that the pacing for me, the pacing is a little bit better because, well, first of all, this movie's shorter than the original Friday the 13th, and also
mm,
you don't have a terrible scene where somebody's making coffee and they show the entire process of her making the coffee. Put in the coffee grounds in the pot, then pouring the water in the pot, then putting the pot on the
yeah,
stove, make sure the
yeah.
temperature's right. Oh my god.
Yeah. See,
Um,
see that kind of stuff, yes. But I'm more referring to like me, like not really connecting with the characters. I'm just like, let's just get on with it. It feels like the characters were there just to die in some instances. So, I just really wasn't connecting with a lot of it except for the kills. And like the actual killer, the minor look, and that mask, man. That mask is kind of haunting, honestly.
we move away from that to the My Bloody Valentine remake released in 2009. So, I'm sorry. My Bloody Valentine 3D. So, My Bloody Valentine 3D was directed by Patrick Lucier, who he went on to direct episode of the Scream TV show, believe it or not, um, which is surprising considering that show is good, which you should all watch it, by the way. He directed Dracula 2000 and its sequels and Drive Angry 3D, starring Nicolas Cage and
Another another
um
3D movie.
and he also directed episodes of Hulu's Into the Dark for Blumhouse, go figure, and an episode of the Purge TV show, which was horrendous, by the way. So this movie stars Jensen Ackles and Tom Atkins, which that surprised me. He showed up. I was like, oh my god, they got this man in this. And a bunch of nobodies that don't matter. And it tells essentially the same story of a mining accident and Henry Warden. They it's told a little differently here, but it's basically the same story. And now people are dying, and they there are some tweaks here and there. They I want to say they put in more effort here because like they actually it feels like they're trying to tell a story, like they're actually like giving some character things here. But my god, this I'm sorry, this movie is horrendous. I mm. Funny story. I'm gonna tell a story. So, like I previously stated, before. I started this on my channel before, way back. And this was the next video that I was gonna do after that. I think I had done Black Christmas, The Fog, and maybe one other one.
Mhm.
And I watched this movie. I watched 20 minutes of it, turned it off, and it was so bad I axed the series entirely.
It's
This
the one that killed the series.
Watching it in its entirety for this, I can see why. This mm, this movie is really bad. This movie came out in an era where horror was really bad because
Mhm.
it came out in the year 2009, of year
Mhm.
of which it was nothing, and I mean nothing but remakes and sequels and 3D horror movies. You know what other movie came out in the year 2009? It's a little movie called The Final Destination, or Final Destination 3D.
Mhm.
This movie is horrendous. I'm sorry. I Now, am I offended by this movie? No, because I don't hold My Bloody Valentine on this pedestal. Like it's not like the 2019 Black Christmas for me. But it doesn't excuse this movie is god awful. It's bad, like really bad. I got through the original My Bloody Valentine, easy peasy. I was sitting there, and I was like, no, okay, I'm done with that. This movie felt 5 hours long. We were talking about Friday the 13th earlier, and how the original is like the original Friday the 13th. So this movie goes, okay, we're gonna be like Friday the 13th 3D, which to me is the most underrated Friday the 13th movie. I think it's really goofy and really silly, but I enjoy that movie. The thing about Friday the 13th 3D that works, of which it does not work about this movie, is that movie one came out in the 80s, so it can get away with a lot of things, like being campy, having horrendous acting, and just being really goofy. Of which that movie to me achieves all three. This movie tries to do the same thing and fails at all three. And Jensen Ackles is lucky that he is as likable as he is because this movie did him no favors. I respect him for at least trying to take the story in some different direction. And I do actually like the ending. I will say that. I do like the ending. I like the ending twist. That is actually pretty good. That is the only thing I like in this movie, actually. Outside of that, this movie was boring. It was way too long. It has some of the dumbest things I've ever seen in a horror movie ever. Like there's this scene where this couple, they're getting busy in a motel, and uh basically some things happen, and the dude storms out, and the woman, she storms out of the motel room fully nude, only wearing heels, which shows why she was casted in this movie, and she's just out nude, fully nude. I'm like, no human being on this earth would do this. And it just leads to two stupid CGI 3D kills that are garbage. Anyway,
You said a lot of what I was going to say, but I'm gonna reiterate some things. So, kind of fun of a funny story. Last October, we were doing a 31 on 31, where we talked about 31 slashers, and this was one of them, the 2009 My Bloody Valentine. And I started watching this movie, and I got to the scene where with the motel and the couple. I said, "What is this, bro? What am I watching right now?" This movie. I have a lot of issues with this movie. Yes. One of the things that I did kind of like, to a point, are the kills. And also the look of the miner. It's very similar to the original with.
I meant to say that. I think something, actually, you know what? We'll talk about it. I like the look.
Mhm,
The person they casted, I like
mhm, mhm.
for the minor, because they do something, and we'll talk about it in the differences. But that is something I think they improved on.
Yes. And something that you mentioned about the kills is they start they start off good. and like the lead up to them are is pretty intense. We get to like the actual kill, and you're like, oh my gosh, what are they gonna do? And it happens, and we're like, any excitement or intrigue goes out the window with this CGI that is just it's kind of normal for these movies around this time, but it's just so bad. And the biggest thing with this movie is the 3D aspect. And I don't think the filmmakers of 3D films back then realized how goofy watching these movies that are not in 3D, that are made for 3D, not in 3D, how goofy they look. Like I don't think they realize that, and it's just like it kind of gives you the ick. Honestly, it's like, oh, this is so bad.
Believe it or
Um,
not, I think that that horrendous Texas Chainsaw movie that was in 3D, I think that might actually be the best one.
mm,
Although it still has a really stupid part where Leatherface throws the chainsaw at the screen and it goes
yeah,
it throws. I'm
see,
like, oh my
yeah,
god.
I feel like that film doesn't utilize the 3D effect as much. And I think with those 3D movies, that's what it should be. It should be like these subtle sequences of 3D where if you watch it not in 3D, it's okay. It won't be like, oh, this is in 3D, this is in 3D, this is in 3D. This movie was heavy-handed, and you could tell like there's this one scene where they're like kind of in the mines, and this guy is standing there and like playing a joke on his girlfriend or whatever, and you just see the pickaxe go through the back of his head, and his eyeball comes out, and it just stands there in that it just has that the camera there for like 5 seconds, like, okay, we get it, it's 3D, come on now, like. But anyway, Jensen Ackles, I'm a Supernatural man, I love Supernatural, and Jensen Ackles plays Dean Winchester in Supernatural. So like I kind of got a soft spot for this movie in turn with that. So I don't know, like Jensen Ackles, he's trying his best. He's doing the best that he can. Um but when it comes to the third act, I don't love it, bro. Like it's it's kind of it feels kind of like Supernatural, but in a movie's form. Like it's different in the way. Well, we'll get into the
Yeah.
differences in the third act and stuff. But like it feels like it started off as a slasher, and then they wanted to throw something supernatural in there, and it just did not fit for me.
I commend them for trying to do something different. It's just when when the thing that fans are there for, which is the kills and the horror, when that is so bad,
Yeah,
everything you do
it
is
over
erased.
yeah, it overshadows
It's
the
erased.
yeah, like the good stuff. It is not even that good. It's
It's
just it's
it's
okay.
it's one of those things that you say the movie's so bad, you're just like, oh yeah, they did do that. Oh yeah,
Hmm.
they did do that.
Yeah. But
This
it don't
movie's
even
bad.
matter. But at the end of watching the movie, you're like, you don't take away that good stuff. It's like
It's
the
like
CGI is just terrible.
yeah, it's like the scene in the opening scene of Final Destination 4, the Final
Mhm,
Destination. I
mhm.
actually think the opening scene in concept is a really cool concept. It's a NASCAR explosion
Oh yeah.
disaster that
Hmm.
like that's pretty cool.
Hmm.
And I guess everything that happens, sure, it's goofy, but it's Final Destination. It's in concept, everything that happens is cool. But as soon as the first person dies in that movie, you're like, oh
Yikes!
no.
No, 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 no.
Like, bro, you made Final Destination bad, bro.
Yeah.
You know how bad you have to be at your job to make Final Destination bad, bro? We're gonna get into the similarities and the differences of My Bloody Valentine. So the similarities, I think the opening, the inciting incident of the movie, ooh, excuse me, is the same, pretty much.
Hmm.
You have the mining accident, and Henry Warden is there. And in you still have the concept of like, it happened on Valentine's Day. I mean, kind of. Um, the minor look, the costume is the same. There were two kill. I think it was one kill. There might be another one. I forgot, but I remember one kill that transfers over from the original and the remake, and it's the laundromat kill,
Hmm.
or the laundry machine kill. And I actually think it was practical in the remake. So they actually used one practical effect. So good job on that. And also the aspect of Henry Warden ripping out hearts and putting them in the boxes, that's
Hmm.
still the same, which I actually really like that concept.
Hmm.
That's actually really
Yeah,
creative.
it's
Um,
Valentine's Day themed.
yeah. I know for a fact there's a character named Axel in the original and the remake. I know that for a fact.
Hmm.
Um the third act is kind of the same. Obviously, there's a major difference from the original to the remake, but the in terms of like what's happening, it's kind of the same. And you also have this relationship nonsense in both the original and the remake. And neither of them, I think, do it good at all. Okay, I guess the murder weapon is the same. The
Hmm.
pickaxe is the
There's
same.
like
So
a love triangle in both.
yeah, I said
Hmm.
the
Oh,
relationship nonsense.
relationship. Yeah, yeah.
Now for the differences. The major one is the kills. It's both in the actual kills themselves and the effects. The kills are there are different kills, and obviously the remake is very CGI heavy, whereas the original is practical effects.
Hmm.
Um, always go with the second,
Practical. Yes. Go
please.
with
Like,
practical.
um, and then actually another difference with this movie is the size of the killer, which is probably my favorite thing
Hmm.
this movie does. I don't know who it is that it's in the suit, but this kind of reminds me of Rob Zombie Halloween with Michael Myers. They
Hmm.
chose a dude that was huge to play
Huge.
Michael Myers,
Yes.
and I actually appreciated that with this movie because like you see him walking, this dude is a behemoth with that thing,
Hmm.
So I was like, oh, that's actually kind of neat. Like in the original, it's a really small, skinny guy. He's running around with a little pickaxe. Like, who is this dude folding? At least the remake dude is like, all right, this dude's gonna fold me in half.
Hmm.
And then the major big difference with this one is that there's a big twist in the third act of the remake. So spoilers for the remake. Don't watch this movie. But in the remake, it's revealed that it was Tom the whole time, and he was kind of just losing his mind, which they kind of
He was
suggest.
like possessed. It seemed like he was possessed by the miner. That's what it
But
seemed
like
like to me.
they reveal that Henry Warden was dead, so they kill him in the beginning. You see him get shot, and they kind of make it be like, oh, he was like Michael Myers,
Survived
like,
it.
oh, he
Yeah.
ate the bullets,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and the twist is that, oh yeah, it was Tom the whole time, and he was kind of just losing his mind, and he picked up the mask, and he was possessed. I was like, what
Mm.
the what is this Friday the 13th Part 5 nonsense, bro?
Yeah.
Like, you know, again, I appreciate the difference. And I was like, oh, well, that's pretty neat. They could have just made spoilers for the original. They could have just made it Axel again and had him be like, oh, I'm jealous and all
Mm.
this nonsense,
Mhm.
but. I appreciate the change because I was expecting it to be Axel. I was like, just reveal that it's Axel so I can turn this movie off already. When they
Mhm.
revealed that it was him, I was like, okay. And I didn't mention this when we were talking about the movie by itself. I hate the look of this movie. This movie looks
Mm.
like it was made for $5,
Yeah.
legitimately. It looks even
Very
lower
cheaply
than made
made.
for TV. It looks like Sci-Fi Channel nonsense. Moving on to what's the definitive version, I think it's pretty clear which one we think is the definitive version. It is the
Mhm.
1981 My
Yes.
Bloody Valentine. I think this movie is a very fun movie. It's very campy, very goofy, very silly, but I think it embraces the right level of goofiness to it. I think
Mhm.
the kills are very good in the unrated. Again, I don't remember if they were this good in the theatrical, but I guess just watch the unrated. That's what I'm telling you. Watch the
Mhm.
unrated, and you will get the same enjoyment that we did. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Turn on the bell for all notifications for future Nerd Talk live streams. Also follow our Instagram, link down below. The next installment of this video will be for Insomnia. Yes, that will actually be the next one. We pushed it back from last month to this month because things happen, but we promise that will happen and it will drop at the end of the month. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we will see you on the next episode, everybody.
Peace.